After a week of traveling on the A&L trains, I had become quite a prolific subway rider, if I do say so myself. I could even put in my headphones after a while and completely zone out without having to listen to the world-famous subway messages. Despite my confidence in transportation, I apparently couldn't not be nervous in New York City. Part of that is that residual prairie boy who can't look up at the top of the Manhattan skyline and not contemplate mankind's hubris at believing that such things could be safe and a part of real life. But the other part is the event that I've ultimately come to see. The opening night of Silent Light, and the reactions of an audience that was about to encounter a representation of Mennonites for the very first time. I'm Nolan Kehler, and from Canadian Mennonites' Menno Creative Residency, this is A Light on Silence, Performance Art and the Kerchiefed Faith. Episode 5, Opening Night. As I walked into National Sawdust on that consequential Thursday night, I marveled at how much the place had changed. A room that had been strewn with lighting equipment, instrument cases, and set pieces had now been arranged into a full-on theater, complete with rows of chairs on the main floor and in the balcony where I had been making my home. The bar area, near the front doors, had been completely freed of papers and boxes and was open for business. A professional photographer was poised in front of a photo backdrop and red carpet, ready to welcome Brooklyn's opera-going public to northern Mexico. Very quickly, the lobby was filled with some of the most fashionable-looking people you could imagine. I watched as Paula, Royce, and Thaddeus mingled with the crowd, many of whom were clearly repeat customers at National Sawdust. After the audience members had their picture taken and got a glass of wine or a cocktail pressed into their hand, they moved toward the theater proper, ready to take their seats. Little did they know that there was one more thing that they had to do before they got there. Talk to a slightly less fancily dressed man with a microphone in his hand. What? There wasn't enough room in my luggage for my blazer. I was flying with only a carry-on, if only to save the hard-earned resources of Canadian Mennonite, who you should support with a subscription today. Through the door of the theater, everyone could see the setup of Johann and Esther's family kitchen, and they could hear the sound of crickets that soundtracked the darkness before dawn and breakfast. I recognized them as the same cricket sounds that you could hear if you watched Silent Light, the movie. Before the audience saw the Mennonite family and their interpersonal struggles that were about to take the stage, or, maybe more accurately, to assuage my anxieties and put in a good word from an actual Mennonite, I wanted to catch people before they went into the theater to ask them a simple question. What did they know about Mennonites going into this experience?
My name is Alex Barnes, born and raised in New York City, and have little knowledge historically about the Mennonites. It seems like it's a very tight-knit community that is deeply religious and rooted in a shared history.
My name is Dan Kerblay, and I'm originally from Long Island, but I live in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn.
And what do you know about Mennonites going into tonight's show?
I don't know much. I know that this show is a wide variety of different experiences with different effects and different experimental music, but I would love an explanation, to be honest.
So now I'm standing in the theater at National Sawdust. I'm standing here with
Ignacio F. Alvarez.
What do you know about Mennonites before seeing this show?
So I know that the Mennonite community, which I'm sure it's present all throughout North America, but I know it's very present as well in Western Canada. And I know that this community very interestingly explores within their way of living and lifestyle very traditional and unique sort of customs and traditions, and it's a very integrated and tight-knit community in a very good way. That's what I know about the Mennonites.
I'm Ashi. I'm from Mumbai, India. I'm interested. This is my first opera show that I'm gonna watch.
Oh wow!
So I think it's gonna be really interesting. I'm not sure what to expect, but yeah.
Fantastic.
I'm keeping an open mind on everything. This is gonna be a completely new experience for me. So.
What do you know about Mennonites going into tonight's show?
Nothing. I have no idea.
All right, so I'm in the upper lobby, and I'm here with
Michelle Stern
and
David Levine.
Okay, Michelle and David. So, what do you guys know about Mennonites?
A little bit, not much. Horses and carriages.
Cool. What about you?
I know next to nothing. They're very symmetrical.
Okay. Looking at this set, what can you surmise about the culture that you are about to see?
Austere. Reserved.
Austere and reserved. Boy, this is perfect audio. How about yourself? What do you think when you're looking at this?
Well, it looks very basic and functional, and I don't mean basic in a bad way.
Well, so far so good when it came to first impressions. Now, it was in the hands of National Sawdust. I found my seat on the main floor, the seat that Paula graciously offered me when I couldn't get a ticket of my own. It was a completely different experience seeing this show from the perspective of the actors, as opposed to my bird's-eye view of the proceedings from atop the balcony. Laptop in front of me as I tried to write notes as quietly as I could while the performers were rehearsing. The gentleman who sat beside me was also at the show to write a review for a major publication, and that feeling of being out of my depth swept over me again. Just like earlier in the week when I saw that marquee in front of the Apollo Theater. Once the audience was settled in, the house lights dimmed, and Dan walked on the stage, wrapped in Johann's stoicism and guilt. His family entered the scene, with the children and parents-in-law making breakfast with the working stove. The smell of pancakes and bacon filled the theater. The front row of the theater, or what seemed to be the front row of the theater, was filled with the chorus from Trinity Wall Street Church, whom you heard singing in our previous episode. Amanda, the costumer, had done an incredible job sourcing dresses and duets for the women and overalls, hats, and plaid work shirts for the men. These folks could have been pulled right out of the Fall Supper in Sommerfeld. The chorus holds a traditional role in opera that can be traced back to the theater of the ancient Greeks. They help to move the dramatic action of the story, bearing the weight of moving the plot along so that the main characters can explore more of the emotional realities that they face. The chorus in Silent Light opened the show with a blend of the emotional and the practical, singing about Johann's guilt. Even for someone who has been surrounded by the ins and outs of opera productions for my entire adult life, it never ceases to amaze me how the people that I speak to as, well, people, can transform themselves into full-bodied characters on the stage. Brittany became every bit the betrayed spouse of Esther, attempting to show the compassion that fuels a peace that is stronger than love.
I used to love traveling like this. The two of us, we'd leave the kids at home. We Sarah to look after them.
Julia appeared on stage left. That's house right, if you remember, as Marianne, the only woman on stage not wearing any head covering at all, to signify her sinful nature, to be sure, but also the burden that she carried in place of a kerchief that was placed on women in a patriarchal society. Almost as spellbinding to watch as the actors on stage was the orchestra. Christopher, dressed in all black flowing clothes, was moving all over the place, guiding the emotional chaos embedded in Paula's music. On the other side of the stage, sparks and smoke flew. It was Nathan, the Foley artist, working on a crankshaft with a circle grinder as Johann goes to visit his friend, Zacharias, the mechanic.
Hold on! I'm fixing an engine block.
Even the child actors, a wild card in any live theater, had elevated their game for this performance, playing in the pool in a way that looked like so much fun, while also managing not to spill too much water onto the stage. Everyone at National Sawdust on that Thursday night was completely immersed in the story and the world in which it lived. The cast, after months of study and preparation, plus the weeks of forming a community to share the story of this community, was inviting the audience to engage in the space they were creating. That space that Maggie Redekop called the Spielraum. As I surveyed the room, it was clear that the audience was also an active part of that covenant that all audiences and performers share. Suspension of the reality they knew here in Brooklyn to travel to one that they knew nothing about. This got me thinking about what the creators said about what they hoped to hear in the lobby when the audience would eventually exit that alternate reality.
I hope that they feel moved. I hope that they remember certain lines. I hope that they, that they're curious about Mennonite faith. I hope that they're curious about Mennonite culture and style of life. I hope that that there's an empathic response. And I think often, so often when you're living in a city, you're not thinking about the experiences you share. You're thinking about how difficult things are in your life. And so I think this slows you down and maybe helps you glimpse into life that's unknown, that's right next to you, that feels so different.
Paula also said something that drove the point that the crew behind the show had been making all week, that the themes of the show shone far beyond a spotlight on Mennonite culture and speaks to the universal, things that people could relate to, even in a place that was as far away as you could get from northern Mexico, or Manitoba, for that matter.
I think it's interesting, we live here in Williamsburg, in South Williamsburg, and there's a Hasidic population that's, very kind of ostracized, if you will.
It's something that Royce pointed out as well.
Yeah, just the proximity to the Hasids is really fascinating. There is something strikingly similar to the silhouette of Amish people walking down the road in their bare feet in Pennsylvania, and the stark black coats. I really think that art has the opportunity to make us come together, especially in a communal environment like that, and to force us to empathize collectively. And I think that there's something really powerful in asking people to come with open hearts and to experience something that they may never have access to. And I don't know what the entitlement to access is, but there is something really really wonderful about opening up an experience for people to come and put themselves in another person's shoes for a few minutes, especially right now.
This was a different way to phrase the struggle that we've been exploring throughout this podcast. How much is someone entitled to access a community that is expressly in this world, but not of it? It's one of the reasons that this particular group ended up in northern Mexico in the first place. Audiences and performers alike built that bridge of entitlement to access with respect. As you've heard over the last few episodes, the cast and crew all approached the characters and their moral struggle with an understanding and a grace that I was less inclined to afford. Not because I didn't think that the characters deserved it, but because I knew what something like that would mean in the context of the community that they come from. In other words, unfortunately, I had sympathy, not empathy, for the role of the doctrine. Knowing what Paula and Royce said about the area and what the opening night audience had told me as they walked into the theater, I was just as excited to speak to people about their impressions of Mennonites and the show as I was to see the show in its entirety. After the music ended, the audience sat in silence in the half-light. Nothing but the sounds of the returned cicadas that opened the show echoed through the theater. Then, a profound standing ovation from everyone in the room. The audience had officially welcomed Johann, Esther, and Marianne, warts and all, to Brooklyn. As soon as the applause died down and people started gathering their things, I pressed my way out of my seat towards the lobby to get myself in position for a similar mission to what I had tried before. Get the audience's reactions to what they had just seen and participated in.
Hi, everybody. Not to interrupt, I'm covering this show for a Mennonite magazine from Canada.
Interesting.
And I would love to hear more about what you guys thought of that show. Do you guys mind?
We're all biased because we're also musicians and friends of so many of the performers. And so we're just like happy to support new art and see our friends do amazing things.
Sure.
And just like be on a confusing and emotional journey. Because I'm a Brooklyn lady, I'm here to say that polyamory could have solved a lot of the problems posed by this production. However, it did a great job of putting us in a world where that was not the obvious solution.
You might already win for a response of the night. So, congratulations, I suppose.
Anytime.
That is amazing. So I'm standing here in the lobby, and I'm here with
Andrew Owsley
and
Mel Baker.
Awesome to see you both. What did you think of the show that you just saw?
I was incredible and wild and crazy and magnificent.
How about yourself?
Stunning, shocking, beautiful, poignant.
What was shocking about it?
The bacon.
The bacon.
We didn't
or
get
the
bacon.
lack thereof.
It
should have been
I'm
shared
feeling the lack of
bacon.
bacon. I
Were
will say
you
that.
expecting to be served bacon?
I always hope. Whenever I smell bacon, I hope that a little bit's coming my way.
A fair assumption.
It's just
I mean, there
just
was
a part
real
of my
rain. Why not real bacon?
life. Exactly.
Leaving this show tonight, what do you think about Mennonites and the moral code that this particular Mennonite sect believes in, adheres to, and follows in their society? What were your impressions of that?
I would say complicated, nuanced, and seems like there's a degree of faith and commitment, but also confusion in some ways too, or complexity, I would say.
I think if faith is love, which is the more prominent? Is it the love for God? Is it love for each other? And I think the struggle between that and finding the love and believing in faith, I think the depiction of that tonight was really beautiful and really powerful.
What did you think of the show you just watched?
Honestly, I thought it was going to be a little bit less emotional than it was. You know,
wow.
It started very slow, just like I assume Mennonite culture is. You know, very slow, very intentional, and it unexpectedly ramped up to a pretty high level, considering it was pretty predictable, you know, plot-wise.
What can you now surmise maybe about Mennonite culture from having seen this show? If anything, do you feel just as about the same amount of knowledge as before you saw this show, or do you feel like you have more knowledge now?
I wouldn't say I have more knowledge, because I feel like the perspective was sort of an outsider view. It almost seemed like an anthropological assessment of Mennonite culture. It didn't seem like it was written from inside the culture. So what I'm assuming that I'm looking at is, when you stage an opera with lots of classical references, then I'm sort of assuming that the writer, is looking from the outside.
So I'm standing here with
Carl Ronneberg
and
Eleanor Park.
We're just talking about how powerful the chorus moments were. We really, really loved those. And the set and the rain and the water, those are just my first visceral highlights for sure. I did plan on doing some internet research afterwards on specifically, because I do have, my girlfriend comes from Amish country. She's not personally, she's Catholic, but we've discussed like what their relationship with technology is. So I was like, I really should learn about what the Mennonite relationship with technology is. Seeing appliances and other things in this show, that was just something I thought about.
All right. How about for you? What sorts of things are you thinking about Mennonites now that you've seen them portrayed in Silent Light?
I feel a very strong sense of community, camaraderie. I also felt the very strong moral code that bound everyone together, and therefore the transgression and what that would mean. And I also thought it was fascinating that he was frank with his wife from the beginning about the affair, because I thought maybe that's part of how the community works, but how painful that must have been for her.
Thank you both so much for taking the time.
Thank you. Hey, what did you think?
I loved it.
Slowly but surely, the audience filed out of the theater, onto the street, and into the September twilight. I stuck around, hoping to say what I thought would be my final goodbyes to the team that I had gotten to know over that past week. And that's when a young man in a plaid shirt sauntered up to me to shake my hand. His name was Jacob. And, believe it or not, dear listener, he was an honest-to-goodness Mennonite. A unicorn in a concrete jungle. Jacob is soft-spoken and direct to the point of being glib. He could have been any number of people that I had grown up with in the Pembina Valley.
How did this show do in representing Mennonites on stage?
I looked like all my babysitters from when I was 8. With the black bonnets and everything.
How did it feel to see, I guess, your culture to some degrees, and depending on your ilk of Mennonite, I suppose, how did it feel to see that represented on stage?
Very strange, because I don't think of my background or culture as very dramatic, but here it was very dramatic. I need to get better at listening to opera and understanding the words, but it surprised me how simple it was. The choral voices felt very Mennonite to me. The orchestra and instrumentation itself did not, but I thought it was a fun twist.
If you were to transplant this show to your Mennonite family and to your Mennonite community, and to have an entire room here at National Sawdust filled with your babysitters in their head coverings, what do you think their reaction would be?
That they weren't ironing properly.
Is that what you noticed?
Which would be, well, that's what they would notice, and that would be their way of not talking about the content.
Unfortunately, Jacob had to run before long. He had a train to catch back to Manhattan. I wish we could have had more time. I wanted to see if someone felt the same things as me in that moment after Silent Light. I also wondered if he would have shared them with me if I had asked. Just like that, I was standing alone in the lobby, trying to discern what my final thoughts were, the ones that could be shared to tie a nice bow on the end of a podcast. A perfect diagnosis of the situation Mennonites from Manhattan to Manitoba faced now that the English world knew all of our dirty secrets, and the playbook that we use, consciously or otherwise, to keep them swept under the rug. I felt proud of the National Sawdust team for pulling off such an honest, if not necessarily authentic, production. A sincere attempt to understand and empathize with a completely different worldview. But another nagging thought lingered in the back of my mind, one that had been with me since the start of this project. That nagging thought is this. What would happen if someone were to present Silent Light to an audience filled with Jacobs and his babysitters? More to the point, what would happen if we shared Silent Light the opera with the community that it depicts? Would they find it sacrilegious? Would they burst into laughter like Maggie had when she first saw the movie version? Would they see something of value in it, perhaps gaining insight into their lives and the culture they exist in? You might be surprised to learn that as mighty an institution as Canadian Mennonite is, producing an opera with all of the bells and whistles that a production like Silent Light entails is not something that is in the budget. I did ask, for the record. And if you want it to be in the budget, well, there is always that subscription option. I also pulled on virtually all of my opera connections in my home city of Winnipeg to see if anyone had any interest. Again, the almighty dollar was not something that people had to make this happen. Still, I couldn't shake the image of sharing this production in the Pembina Valley in front of people who could very well feel the discomfort that I felt around this project on an even grander scale. I wondered what the creative team would think of showing this production to a room full of people that they were trying to portray.
I mean, this is a really tough question. I don't know if I have a good answer for that, but it's such a great line of questioning. Have other people answered that question?
They have.
What did
they've been.
What are people saying about it?
They hope that. Or what do you hope that someone like me takes away from the show?
Gosh. I mean, I guess I hope I got something right, you know? I hope that there's honor done to the movie, to the story, to the, to some of the kind of interior landscapes, to, the imagery, to the, I don't know, I hope it doesn't feel like a caricature. I hope it feels deep, I hope it feels powerful and beautiful.
I do hope that I never intended for there to be any sort of offensive content or anything like that. I hope that they would come, I hope they will come, and they will see a very open-hearted, dramatic interpretation of sometimes what life throws your way, even within a conservative framework.
I would hope that they feel that certain core elements of their human experience are reflected. If they can, and undoubtedly they would look at things and go, that would never happen, that isn't correct. We're not trying for a documentary here. But if there are elements of their faith journey that they feel is accurately reflected in some ways, where they can go, I knew someone who had that feeling, I myself had that feeling, and seeing some people wrestle with that within the context of this belief system, I would hope that they would feel that it's, of course, done respectfully, and that it is done with, because I believe it is, and it's, they would just see part of their humanity reflected.
Hopefully that they see these traditional aspects that are being brought to our show and that's being portrayed, as far as for just like the simple tasks of cooking and this and baking and all of these types of things, that they're able to kind of see the structure of tradition, but then also having the storytelling of still being able to feel and having true emotions behind all of it.
I would hope that it would let them also look to the universality of their experiences and see how even a language, a musical language, can still be a powerful tool for telling stories from their community. I just speak to the universality of art. That's what I would hope.
Maybe, one day, that tool will be used to share that story. Maybe it will spark conversations. Maybe no one will ever perform Silent Light in North America again. But at least we can try. As I stood in the lobby, lost in the world of my own thoughts, Paula came up to me, gave me a hug, and told me that there was a cast party taking place at a posh bar up the street, and that I was on the guest list. One final kindness shown to me in a week of access and trust. I gladly accepted and walked with Nathan, the Foley artist, and Brittany, fresh out of her Esther costume, up the street to the bar. As I mingled with the cast, crew, and friends of National Sawdust amongst the sea of hors d'oeuvres and wine glasses, it struck me that every one of the people involved, although they will each take something from this performance into their next communities, would be able to leave their characters and the doctrines that govern them behind in the theater, where it will slowly dissolve into memory. I, however, will dwell on this for months after I leave New York, pondering the project's ramifications on my extended community and myself. Eventually, I set out one final time for the subway station. And that's where I hit a snag. The stop was closed for maintenance, and my phone had died. So, I have to follow the directions given to me by transit authority officers and looking at honest-to-goodness physical maps to figure out how I'm gonna get home. The evening was quite warm, and I was wearing a leather jacket that was just a little too thick for the occasion, so I began to sweat profusely, which didn't help my anxiety. It occurred to me, on the odyssey to get back to Kieran's place on the Upper West Side, that this might be as close as I could ever get to what a Mexican Mennonite would experience being in New York City. And I smiled at that thought. It's circumstances like these that make me grateful to be who I am, contradictions built within me by the culture that I claim. As I stood on the lonely subway platform, I thought of Carlos Regadas, of Miriam Toews, of women talking, of my friends back home. I think about all the conversations this experience would spark, how they might serve to grow my knowledge about the faith-informed culture around me, how they might grow my own personal faith. This is something that honest art is the most skilled at doing. A Light on Silence was made through Canadian Mennonites Menno Creative Residency, with thanks to Toby Thiessen, Sue Fish, Ann Bose, and Audrey Montag. Editorial assistance was provided by Will Braun, and technical assistance by Daryl Newstader-Barg. Silent Light's archival audio was provided by National Sawdust, with the assistance of Royce Vavrick, Paula Prestini, Raz Dia, Blake Ziddell, and David Mercier. Special thanks to Kieran Foss, Allison Miller, Lauren Donnelly, and Stephanie Cram. More information, including a video production of Silent Light that you can watch in its entirety, can be found at canadianmennonite.org/silence.